It's not Botswana.
Jay, make sure to change your name.
Oh, how did I get Kitso? That's interesting. Thank you. I don't know when that happened.
Because you
A
went
lovely
through.
name. A lovely name, but I don't know. It's up to you.
Then there'll be two of us.
Amit, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Excellent. Very nice to see you. Very good.
Great to see you as well.
Hi, Ami.
Hi, Gael.
Morning, Maloki. Good morning, Tamim. Good morning.
Tamim,
DC.
yes. I can see Tamim here. Good morning, Tamim.
DC, and we're real happy to see all you here.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good to see everybody.
Hey.
Check my camera angle. We're good.
Jay, I see again you copy my shirt. We need to discuss about it.
This is a much better shirt than you have.
Actually, you're right.
Hi everybody, the webinar is streaming live, so if you're not easy at the moment, turn off your screen.
Turn off
And
the
then-
screen.
Yes, and then
Okay.
Izzy can turn off the screen and start
Yes, sir.
the speech. Thank you.
But Pete, I think we have to conclude that both of them what you and me.
Hello, good morning. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
It's Ricky. I'm Ricky from the Chubby Bream Fish Farm here in Kasane. Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Okay, so who am I?
Morning, Ricky.
Nice to meet. Finally.
Nice. Maus. Maus, how do you pronounce your name?
Yes, Maoz, yes.
Right.
Hi, Ricky.
Good morning. Who is that? Mr. Toto.
Yes, you can say Tata O di Chaba. Which one is
Good morning, guys. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We're actually live on the Facebook page right now. Power Africa is beginning its session, which we're very excited about. Without any further ado, I want to thank the BITC for hosting Empower Africa. I want to thank my distinguished colleagues at Empower Africa for supporting. This is Caleb Zipperstein. I'm on the business development team at Empower. Thank you also to our dear friends at the BITC and the honorable government of the Republic of Botswana. I was there last year and hope to be there again next year when we can all be together. Thank you all, dear viewers, for joining the session. I'd like to introduce the CEO and founder of Empower Africa, Ezzy Rappaport, to deliver some remarks. Thank you, Ezzy.
Thank you, Caleb. First of all, thank you, Caleb, on behalf of Empower Africa and such a leading team member. I want to appreciate your efforts to really build a relationship with the BITC, helping us hire our first employee, Kitso, who's been doing an amazing job. And we are very excited about our work in Botswana, and we're very inspired by all the people that we've been engaged with already. So thank you, Caleb, and thank you for all the attendees as well for joining us here. And I want to speak today about Empower Africa. The first thing I want to open with is values. What do values mean to you? Values drive us, values unite us, and values will lead us to success. My journey to this stage has been long, and yet it is just the beginning. Like this country, I too grew from diamonds. My father, Martin Rappaport, founded a values-driven company called the Rappaport Group with a mission to create ethical, transparent, competitive, and efficient diamond and jewelry markets. These values built me and led me to Africa. My father dedicated himself to help end conflicts and support rehabilitation programs in Sierra Leone. And as a teenager, I grew up in Jerusalem, feeling for people in Africa and being inspired by the tremendous resilience and determination to create a better life for themselves and their children. On my first trip to Africa over 15 years ago, I realized right away that the true diamonds of this continent are not in the ground. The true diamonds are its people. Africa is a beautiful continent full of amazing, diverse people who can and who are playing a significant contributing role in this world. Yet, there is still so much more untapped, unleashed potential. Africa is a land of dreams and opportunities. It is with this idea that I founded Empower Africa, a values-driven company on a mission to accelerate empowerment by driving investment, trade, and job creation. How can we empower people to live with dignity and to their full potential? How can we enable everyone to live with dignity and to their full potential? This is a question I ask myself every day. Our first mission at Empower Africa is to communicate positive awareness on Africa globally and specifically to the private sector. We need to drive a positive narrative on Africa and specifically to the private sector. Yes, we are strong advocates for trade over aid. And we are building the most influential and powerful business network with the world's leading companies driving development. I mentioned trade because, yes, we need to think with our hearts, yet we also need to think with our minds, business minds. We see business as the only way to drive sustainable and scalable solutions and sustainable and scalable prosperity. As I like to say, the people are the why and the business is the how. Empower Africa's values are what led us here today to Botswana. And the values of Botswana, its people and its government, is what attracted us here. Botswana is indeed an inspiring country and a leader in Africa. It is a role model, not just for countries in Africa, but for the world. It is a symbolic example of growth and development through persistency and hope. It is the oldest democracy in Africa and has one of the most business-friendly environments. Its forward-thinking approach and investment in its people is recognized by many, yet it should be recognized by more people, and more people, not just in Africa, around the world. Empower Africa sees tremendous potential to promote investment in Botswana and support the major efforts to diversify its economy and drive economic growth. We are here because we believe that the people are the future, and we believe in the direction of this government and in all the efforts that it's been putting in place to drive economic growth by investing in its people. And our approach is threefold. First of all, we want to boost knowledge transfer and drive knowledge creation in Botswana, drive innovation in Botswana. And what we're doing is we are attracting experts from all over the world. We are getting international awareness to the best people, the best expertise in the world where we feel could have an impact in Botswana. And we'll hear more about this from our panels coming up in the agriculture sector and in the VC front. Second, we want to increase investment into the country. We want to promote investment into Botswana and boost the local ecosystem. We need to support the local entrepreneurs, and we need to support local companies to scale their business. And the third thing is to build partnership relationships. And that's what Empower Africa's business network is all about. Yes, we want to, and we are attracting the leading companies in the world and the leading companies in Africa that are driving development on the continent. But we also want to map out the local ecosystem, enable local companies that are searching for partnership relationships, trade relationships, seeking investment. We want to be able to connect them with international partners. Now, what we're looking at also at Empower Africa, we've been focusing on, is the agriculture space. The agriculture sector all over Africa has tremendous potential and is the engine for economic growth, and Botswana is no different. Botswana is the size of France, approximately with little over 2 million people. There is tremendous opportunity for Botswana to not just be self-reliant and be able to produce what it eats, but Botswana could be a major exporter, not just of cattle and livestock, which it's a leader in, but it could also diversify into many other crops and many other produce that it could export to the world. And that is something that we are going to be addressing today, and I'm very excited to learn more from our experts coming up on the panel. I want to, again, thank Caleb, Kitso, for their leadership on Empower Africa's front to really build and strengthen the relationship. And before I close, I would like to give a special letter of gratitude to Julius from the BITC, who's been such an encouraging and inspiring individual. As I mentioned, we are here not just because of our values that led us, but because of the people in Botswana, that they're flying all over the world. We met people from the BITC in Davos, Switzerland. They came to Jerusalem. There's a tremendous amount of desire and drive in Botswana, and those values, that drive and determination is also what brought us here. And I want to thank Julius very much for all his efforts here, and I want to really bless the people of Botswana and really see how and look towards a bright future together. And I'm very excited to everything that we will accomplish together. God bless. And I'll pass it over to, is Julius on the call, by the way?
Yes.
Julius?
Yes, I am here, Izzy.
Yes.
I am here.
Thank you so much.
Izzy, how are you?
a bit earlier, but I really want to give a shout out and give a minute of recognition because you are an instrumental individual, and it's because of you that we're engaging with Botswana. And again, thank you so much for your leadership and support. We are forever grateful. Over to Shai. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Over to Shai. Thank you very much.
If I can ask people to please go on mute, I think there's a certain echo. Julius, I'm not sure if it's you, Julius. If I can ask people to please go on mute. Okay. Julius? Julius, can you please put yourself on mute? I think it may be on your end. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ezzy, for that inspiring speech. My name is Shai Bernstein, and I'm VP of Biz Dev and Operations at Empower Africa. To all our friends in Botswana, I would start with the blessing Pula, which I've just recently learned. Hoping for all of us to get good rain. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to move forward and I'll present the Empower Africa Business Network and our activities. So if you could just let me know if you could see my screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So the Empower Africa Business Network. As you mentioned, Empower Africa, we are a values-driven company and believe that business is the best way to create scalable and sustainable solutions for developing economies. We're big believers in trade over aid and true supporters of the private sector. As you mentioned, that's what it all boils down to, and that's what can really create a win-win situation and change the reality that we have now in Africa, which I'll also mention that in a few minutes. So, as many of you may know, many times when we travel the world in different countries, we meet, some very intelligent and wonderful people who unfortunately still view Africa as a country and as a continent with 54 countries, right? That's why a big part of what we're doing is also to create more positive awareness about Africa, as you mentioned. Empower Africa, we have 3 services. The Empower Africa Business Network, which I will present you shortly, the trade missions and international events, and project facilitation. So just briefly about the 2 other services. We held about more than a year ago a trade mission, agriculture-focused trade mission to Sierra Leone, and we brought 9 international companies to Sierra Leone to see the business potential in the country, to meet with the relevant government officials, and most importantly, facilitated more than 120 B2B meetings between the international companies and the local companies. We've had multiple events, an event at Harvard University, together with the US government, the president of Sierra Leone, other members of the private sector and leading companies like Facebook, Oracle, and GE. We've had an event in London, adjacent to the UK Africa Investment Forum, where again, we brought together different members of government, the private sector, and so on. We really believe in the concept of collaboration, bringing everybody together, and really seeing how we can create so much value for everyone. The consulting and project facilitation, that goes to our agriculture, which Maoz Aviv, our Director of Agriculture, will be speaking about later on as well. And what I want to move on to now is discuss just some basic facts on Africa. Many times when we're speaking at these different events, the target audience is very dynamic, because on one hand, while we have many people from Botswana, we have multiple people from around the world with us right now live, and also people who will watch it later. And so I want to very briefly go over just some incredible stats about the continent before we dive into Botswana, of course, later on as well. So some facts about Africa. Africa makes up almost 20% of the Earth's landmass and is home to approximately 16% of the world's population. But nevertheless, Africa's economies account for 3% of the world's GDP, right? It's staggering to think about the potential, the huge, amazing potential that we have here. 50% of the population in Africa is under the age of 20 and 60% under the age of 25, right? Making Africa the world's youngest continent. 1.3 billion people already live in Africa. That's more people than Europe and North America combined. I can tell you for one that the vast majority of the people that I speak to, who again, many of them wonderful people, intelligent people, successful people, are just not aware, right? Not fully aware of these fundamental numbers and what it means and what the potential is. As of 2019, 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa still do not have access to electricity, right? So we're talking about, on one hand, the business potential and how we want to drive business and sustainable economic development in Africa. But at the same time, as your Rappaport says, I love this quote, the people are the why and the business is the how. So we can't forget that the amount of people, more than 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa, are not connected to electricity, right? And in some Central African countries, less than 10% of the population have access to electricity at all. Now, in terms of innovation, and a lot of what we're talking here in our event, in 2019, African tech companies did as follows. They raised more than $2 billion in equity funding. Okay, that's an increase of 74% year over year, through over 250 deals with an average deal size of more than $8 million. Okay, now I want to move on to the Empower Africa Business Network. Okay, the Empower Africa Business Network provides a centralized business platform to connect, collaborate, and communicate on all aspects driving business in Africa. As many of you may know, some of the challenges of coming to a new market are efficiency, trust, and capital, right? There's a lack of efficiency. I'm uncertain who I can trust. And there's, of course, a challenge, building capital. Now, of course, it varies when you're talking about London, New York, San Francisco, or Tel Aviv in terms of how much capital is over there. And when we're talking about different countries in Africa. But this is something that is really in common with something that all, challenges that all new markets have. And when we're looking at Africa, and we talk about the Empower Africa Business Network, these are the stakeholders that we're referring to, okay? So we have the SMEs and the startups, right? Who are looking to raise capital from Botswana, from Rwanda, and from Kenya, and so on. We have the financial institutions who are looking to invest. We have the banks, VCs, PEs, right? The private equity funds who are asking us, do you have any interesting companies to invest in? Are you hearing of any interesting projects, right? The multinational enterprises who are already active in many countries in Africa, but it's just the beginning. As we know, very little of them are actually setting shop and driving business already in Africa. And so the potential is huge. And we want to bring them to invest in Botswana, to invest in all these countries. The government agencies, whether it's DFID from England, GIZ from Germany, US government has OPIC, MCC, USAID, and many more, the governments themselves, right? And the nonprofits. And so as you may know, every one of these stakeholders has a relevant seat at the table, right? That we're talking about, of centralizing everybody so people can get to know each other, people can learn about each other and see what can be done together. So the benefits of the business network: connect with trusted partners, because again, the Empower Africa Business Network is a trusted community. It's an invite-only platform, okay? It's a paid membership, and we want to make sure that everybody joining the network, we go through due diligence progress that we, that we built to make sure that these people all have values and share the same values that we're doing, that we believe in, and the activities that we're doing. We started, our first push was with agriculture, as he mentioned. The potential in agriculture in Botswana specifically is just tremendous, right? And of course, there's so much collaboration and interesting potential that can be, also taking into consideration the amount of desert land that exists in Botswana. When we look at Israel as a component of a country that more than 60% of it is actual desert, and when you think about all the R&D and amazing capabilities that agriculture, that Israeli agriculture has specifically, and other agriculture, whether it's in the Netherlands and so on, what can be done in Botswana is just tremendous. But again, it's the first step is to create a trusted community, okay? To make sure that all the people are relevant, good people with a good track record and so on, and the values, of course. Gaining exposure to the trusted global community. So you as a individual or as a company have a profile and you can present your products, your services, and so on. You have access and able to post the quality deal flow. This is speaking specifically towards the innovators, entrepreneurs, SMEs on one hand, right? Whether it's the governments who have different projects that they want to execute, and they're looking for different people who are interested in taking part of the funding. And then you have, of course, the banks, the private equity funds, and the VCs who are interested in investing, right? Meeting business experts for dedicated communities, which you'll see in a moment for some screenshots of the product. Curated news, reports, and events. We are creating the business platform for driving business in Africa. That's what Empower Africa is doing. And part of that, of course, creating the trusted community, is to attend the exclusive Empower Africa events. So some of the events that I mentioned, we've had multiple other events in Tel Aviv as well. And, of course, with COVID now, we shifted into virtual events, which, by the way, whoever hasn't heard, we have a very interesting event December 2nd. 3 very interesting panels about investing in Africa in agriculture and technology. And specifically, there's a panel about spotlighting Botswana. Okay, so stay tuned. The concept of having a dedicated account management that helps you understands what your challenges are as a business, as a government agency, as the government themselves. I'll just give an example, right? We're speaking with BITC, and one of the things that they're talking about is they're saying, okay, we want to see how we bring more investors and more investment into the country, okay? We're sitting in a very unique position with our network and our growing community in London, Davos, Dubai, Tel Aviv, San Francisco, and so on, that we hear all the time the different people and different interests and people who are looking for this company that can build a bridge, build a power plant, or plant 10,000 hectares of rice. And that's where we come in to come and help and facilitate these different projects, help let people know about each other, introduce people to each other for what they're looking for and according to their needs, okay? Moving on, because I don't want to take too much time. What does the network provide? The business network, it's a business network of in-depth profiles and organizations and individuals driving business in Africa. There's a data center of business intelligence and opportunities, deal flow, marketplace. Like I mentioned, the concept of the deal flow, right? So there's, again, the people who are looking for investment, SMEs, startups, and so on. There are people who are looking for projects to invest in, companies to invest in. And then, of course, there's the governments with larger scale infrastructure projects as well. The membership tiers, there's individual, which is, again, many times, and we've seen this already, there are many people that are just as an individual, even if they're not doing that as their day job sometimes, right? They're very passionate about Africa. They're very passionate about investing in human capital and about driving sustainable economic development, and they want to be a part of this, right? So that's the first concept. Then, of course, you have different individuals, both on continent and globally, who are interested as individuals to take part of this with their own business. But then there's the organization profile and the impact organization, and of course, the highest level, which is the empowerment organization, where here it varies about the different services that you get from the Empower Africa Biz Development Team. Again, like I mentioned, helping you expand your business and what you're trying to achieve, whether it be a government, a bank, and so on. So you get to build and own your own personal organization profile. You're presenting your products and services to the network, and you can search by key the business criteria, the skills, the industries, location, and more, okay? You also could create and find and attend for all the international business events. So it's not just our events that we're doing, but rather we're mapping out all of the relevant events in Africa, okay? And you'll see in a moment, I'll show you how it looks in the product, okay? The access to the expert marketplace is also a very big component because there are many experts in agriculture, energy, innovation, healthcare, and so on. And they are looking for the company, the government, and so on that's looking for their expertise. And of course, the other way around, we're speaking to different government officials from different African countries who are saying to us, we're looking for an expert in water. We're looking for an expert in energy, in solar energy, and so on. Now, just to give a quick example of how it looks, okay? So this is, first of all, the live feed, okay, of the platform. And just to give an example, this is Sheer, who's a colleague of ours who works with us. This is her feed, okay? This is my feed, and it looks different. One of the reasons why it looks different is because I am choosing to be in different communities that interest me and that are relevant to me and my business. I'm looking for specific news, right, for the curated news channel. And you'll see in a moment how you can check and, check the box literally of what I'm interested, what information I'm interested in receiving. Then, of course, there are the members, right? Who are the people? Where are they from? And I get to see more information about them. Looking at the communities. These are, of course, just some of the communities that we've opened up. So there's also the concept of the countries. So I'm interested in doing business in Rwanda. I have a business there, I have family there, and this is what I'm interested in. I'm also very interested in South Africa for multiple reasons, okay? And then, of course, the sectors aspect, whether it's agriculture, each and every one of these communities open up into sub-communities and have a world of their own in terms of the data, the information, the connections that one can get, and so on. And then, of course, as an example, the family offices, because again, in addition to banks and Ps and VCs, they're family offices who are interested in investing in Africa. Now, moving forward, the events. Like I mentioned, finding the events and all across Africa. And you can search here. If you look here, you can search for the events in the location, what I'm interested in attending, and so on. News, like I mentioned, here's the filters where you can come and say what I'm interested in hearing about and what news I wanna get. And that's it. Right here, guys, if you wanna apply to get a demo for the network, you can scan this QR code. Here's a link to visit us, of course, and you can, of course, just visit empowerafrica.com and get more information, both to book a demo and get more information in general. And last but not least, as I mentioned, check out the virtual networking event that we have on December 2nd, which again, I mind you, it's not just a panel, but rather a virtual networking event where we have a special technology where you can literally meet people. There's a floor, there are tables, there are chairs, and you sit down, can have an intimate conversation with different people that interest you and how you're looking to grow your business. And as I mentioned, of course, Botswana, there's a panel of a spotlight on Botswana. Okay, so you can just visit Empower Africa right here and look at the Empower Africa events to get more information. Thank you very much for your time. I wish you a blessed morning, a wonderful day, and stay safe and healthy. Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks so much, Shai. So I will be leading the next panel on technology as it relates to shaping the future of agriculture. It's first and foremost an honor to be here and a pleasure to be sitting, quote unquote, with all of you from a distance. It's truly amazing. And to echo what Shai is saying, it's truly amazing what we could do nowadays online and virtually. So without further ado, I would like to get right into it. So again, thank you to the Botswana Investment and Trade Center for really having Empower Africa organize this panel. This panel is titled Technology and Shaping the Future of Agriculture. My name is Yael Birnbaum. I'm on the business development team at Empower Africa. And so really I wanted to start with asking a question to all of you and asking you to ask yourself, why are we here? Why are you here specifically? So you might answer something, of course, that's relevant and more short-term as I see it, like finding a partner or finding a client, finding an investor to support your startup, or your operational facility. And of course, these are perfect answers and very relevant, but ultimately the overarching theme that brings us all here together is our actual existence. So yes, this might seem a bit of an exaggeration, but it's really not. And as the saying goes, you need a doctor or a lawyer every so often, but you need a farmer 3 times a day. And so development in agriculture and food production was really born out of the dire needs of the human race. According to a McKinsey report in 2015, we will need to increase our food production by a whopping 70% by 2050 in order to accommodate for every single person on this planet. So they say that necessity is the mother of invention. So we're innovating right now to save and reduce our usage of scarce resources. We innovate to bring significant change to the process and methodology of sourcing, harvesting, and producing. We innovate to be more efficient and, more importantly, more humane. We innovate to see and hear from our local partners, to be able to do business respectfully, and of course, ensure transparency along the process. So in addition to asking ourselves why we're here, we should also ask, how are we specifically contributing to this definite and necessary change in the course of humanity? There are many challenges that we are out to solve together. Land is being utilized increasingly for residential and commercial activities rather than for farming. Water access and usage is limited. Farmers are getting older and older, and the younger generations are opting for more attractive professions that do not require physical labor and pay much higher salaries. These are all issues that are bound to create shortages of food, water, and land, and such a situation, as we know, may ultimately lead to wars. That means we have no choice but to be smart with our shared lands, waters, and the whole value chain from farm to table. This need to innovate has also opened up some great economic opportunities, as both Shai and Ezzy have mentioned. Over the years 2010 to 2015, investments in ag tech increased 11-fold to more than $5.4 billion in 2015. And most of those investments were made in the precision agriculture space. And so what you'll see and hear today on this panel are from some exceptional individuals who have taken that bold leap to address the challenges that I just mentioned. The innovation that you'll hear about spans across irrigation, seeds, shelf life longevity, greenhouses, plant-based alternatives, one of my favorites, fisheries and aquaculture, farm mechanization, fertilizers and alternatives, plant and animal conservation, and precision agriculture, of course. And the subsectors are using different technologies, from material innovation to genetic modification, satellite imagery, smartphone usage, of course, artificial intelligence, and robotics and sensors. So without further ado, let's get to the panel. I'd like to introduce each one of our panelists, and I'll ask that as I introduce you, you just put on your video. I see that already Maoz, Roy, and Amit have their videos. Jan, Ricky, and Hill, if you're able to also put your videos on, fantastic. So we'll start off with Amit Noam, who is the COO of AgriTask. AgriTask is a world-leading agriculture platform provider that digitizes agricultural ecosystems, enabling better agronomic practices and access to more accurate insurance and credit-based products for farmers. AgriTask works in over 35 countries across 5 continents, serving clients like the IFC, Starbucks, Continental Re, and Swiss Re. Amit has an entrepreneurial DNA and has previous experience with strategic consulting and business development. Thanks for joining us, Amit. Ricky, or Mary Van Gran, also known as Ricky, director of Chobe Bream Aquaculture Farms, which is a brand of golden wrap. Chobe Bream is located in northeastern Botswana. They began their operations 8 years ago with reticulation systems and greenhouses, And since then, they expanded to fish farming of earth ponds. Their specialty is in farming indigenous species like tilapia. And in addition to their aquaculture operations, they also produce crops under center pivot irrigation systems and fruit orchards under drip irrigation. Thanks for joining, Riki.
Thank you, Yael. I'll keep my video off because my network is very unstable at the moment.
No worries, no problem. That's better. Okay, so next up is Jan Hendrik Stieglich. He's the managing director and founder of Luzerne Farms. Jan is an avid farmer with a passion for the agriculture sector and people alike. Following his vision and love of land where he was raised, Jan established one of Botswana's leading horticulture and livestock operations in 2007. Today, his horticulture division employs 150 permanent staff and operates on 260 hectares of irrigated farmland next to the Limpopo River. The livestock division employs 25 permanent staff and operates on 13,000 hectares in the Sandveld region. Thanks for joining, Jan. Maoz Aviv, the Director of Agriculture at Empower Africa. Maoz brings 20 years of experience serving as Chief Agronomist and Marketing positions at leading food and beverage and irrigation companies. Maoz has executed dozens of projects all over the world. His broad perspective has brought him to advising governments, multinational agriculture companies and institutions, startups, and of course, the farmers themselves. Thanks, Maoz, for joining. Roy Peleg is the CEO of Growing Smart. Roy is a senior lecturer at Mashav, the Israeli government's development organization, and is currently leading an agriculture training school curriculum in Ghana. He has deep experience in agriculture consulting and was formerly head of marketing and business development at the famed Netafim. Growing Smart collaborates with farmers, investors, governments, agricultural technologies, and input companies, as well as farming corporations and cooperatives. And their team provides strategic agricultural consulting to address the value chain holistically. Thanks, Roy, for joining. Next up is Hill van Schalwijk.
I said thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thanks for responding. Hill van Schalwijk is the CEO of Hills Agrochemicals. Hill has over 40 years of experience as an agronomist in chemicals. He prepares and supplies customized spray programs per crop to farmers. Hill is originally a farmer and entrepreneur himself and is passionate about investigating and experimenting with new crops in Botswana, like coffees, vines, and leafy vegetables. So thank you everyone for joining today. It's good to see you guys also over these frequencies, and let's get right to the questions. So I actually wanted to start out, and I might direct certain questions to certain people in the interest of time over here. I wanted to start out by something that also echoed, Shai echoed and was mentioned earlier, the importance of youth, really. And how do you think that we can attract more young people to transition into this field, into the agricultural sectors? And I would like to start, please, with Jan.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I think you started with the toughest question with me first. I think there is unfortunately a perception in agriculture that it's not for educated young people, and it's so not true. Although you have the normal laborers that you introduce on the farm and stuff like that, but there's so many sectors in the farming industry and the farming community that actually suited a young, educated person to become a farmer and to be actively involved in the farming industry. that it just don't make sense that, you know, it happens so much that if you don't inherit a farm, you end up not being in the industry. And it's basically just because of cost. It's so expensive nowadays to start a farming enterprise. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. And so obviously through education and international exposure and financial backup, I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to attract more young people into the farming community.
When you say financial backup, you mean more from the government, more kind of programs that are directed to get the youth involved?
Yes, obviously, from the government, if there's certain projects available or that's been running for young farmers to go into, but from a financial institutions also, you know, if they don't get the backup, it's just a matter of time before they leave the industry as well, you know. So, and the only way that we can keep them in the industry is obviously through a mentoring program, and then obviously then financial backup at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it's key to the bottom line. That's what it comes down to. I would like to ask the same thing. Thank you, Jan, for your wonderful response. I'd like to ask Hill the same thing. Do you have any comments on that? Any further things to add?
Thank you very much. Thanks for being on this panel. I really feel privileged to be here. And Jan, thank you. At least I know your face. Guys, yeah, I'm involved in South Africa and in Botswana. And as you know, the political situation in South Africa currently on land distribution, that we have a lot of people coming into my office. And there were actually somebody yesterday here that wants to acquire land from government, but he's got zero experience. He's got a lot of aspirations. And I think government is going to give him land, and it is actually a guaranteed failure, because the process of getting these guys, or a young aspiring farmer, because he's got all the aspirations of that. But unfortunately, even having an agricultural degree today, and you give somebody a piece of land, that's a fertile exercise. I've seen it too many times, and it just doesn't work. So in Botswana, Jan has got a lot of experience in Botswana, because he's got some people that government sent to him to work there as well, young graduates or end of year, final year graduates. My feeling is that I think there's a bigger part that we need to play with educating people after graduation or before choosing a career. That farming is one not for stupid people, because in the old days they said the stupid kid go farming, the less intellectual one go farming. So there's, according to me, there's a feeling by guys, okay, I'll go farming. Today it is the intellectual guy, the guy with a lot of ideas, that actually make a success of farming, and he needs a mentor for 4 or 5 seasons before he can maybe left alone. It's like somebody trying to become a pilot. You give him an aircraft and you give him, and you say, go, it will crash. But he needs to be with somebody for a time, really close. The other thing as well is the guys come in with the idea of quick money. They think, man, I'm going to plant 2 hectares of cabbage and I'll make my little sums, and next week I'm a millionaire. It doesn't work that way. It's too complex today. I see it from a fertilizer, soil science, spray program, marketing, the whole caboodle. I think there's a lot of work to go in to preparing people and getting them right for that job. So it's a very short answer to a 2-day answer, but I'll keep
Yes, so amazing. So it really is about mentorship, as I hear you saying. And if I can just get in, you know, a minute or less from Roy, since I know that mentorship is right down your alley, and and excuse me, and training, I would love to get your perspective on this as well, Roy.
Sorry. Thank you, Yael. Pleasure to be here today. Well, obviously, people who know me here on this panel know my passion for agriculture knowledge and how I see that as a key factor. But I want to take us one step earlier and say, I think we need to think also about farming and to go from owning to earning. And what I mean by that is that one of the biggest, I think, limiting factors we have today is scale, the scalability. Imagine that each of us would have a textile factory at home to produce his own clothes. I mean, that sounds very romantic and nice to have, you know, your own farm, but scale is the limiting factor. You cannot anymore cultivate a 1 acre or not even a 10-acre field and still expect to keep it visible. So I think the key is there, and that is also linked in a significant way to knowledge, because also in knowledge to try and provide the knowledge on a farmer base, on a private farmer base, is also almost impossible. We are talking about hundreds of millions of farmers around the world, and in Africa, I think it's very clear that, you know, a very large part of the population is defined as farmers. I think a new approach has to combine these two things: scalability and knowledge transfer.
Fantastic. So thank you. Yeah, I think we're hearing that the youth will really be pulled in by financing, by various different programs, and of course mentorship, meaning that they get the proper support. And then Roy's last point about making sure that scalability is a factor which is taken into place. Amazing. I think everyone, you know, is really thinking about this question more and more. I would like to move on to the next question. So we all heard about drip irrigation, the Netafim and Nan and the Kibbutz Dan story, which of course was revolutionary. But what, in your opinion, is the next big thing that should be adopted specifically for the Botswana agricultural value chain? And is this also the same technology for Africa at large, for also globally? And I would like to get Amit's perspective on this.
Okay, thank you so much, Yael. And it's a real pleasure to be here. And I'll answer this question, but I'll also connect it to the previous question because I think it's connected. I think we're in the beginning of a digital revolution in agriculture that will enable to connect the entire ecosystem together, and it will also enable technology attracts young people. It's able to facilitate knowledge transfer. It's able to facilitate what Roy said about scale. When you start connecting the ecosystem together through digital technologies, and you're able to take a farmer, another farmer, and another farm and put them together in the same ecosystem, suddenly you have the visibility of the entire agriculture value chain. And then you're able to start optimizing the value chain, and you're able to have economies of scale, and you're able to make each farmer part of this bigger thing in order to be able to make each one much more profitable than he can be by himself. And the additional aspects you can add to that is once you're able to have this digital infrastructure of all the agriculture in the space, you're able to start connecting the insurance companies that are able to come and insure the growers, and the financial institutions that will be able to come and provide much more affordable credit, and of course the input providers and the buyers. And I think this digital revolution of connecting all the parts of the value chain together will do a significant change in the next 10 years to come.
Fantastic. Maoz, any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you again, Yael. Thank you for everybody to join. I will actually take Amit answer, and I definitely agree that is the next and this is the future. But I will take it for another perspective. I will treat the flow of information, the ability today to transfer and receive a lot of information from a small farmer somewhere in a very remote area, all the way to big organization, governments and institute and everybody. But today we have the ability to control and get all this information. It can actually take us and support us in the two vectors of activity: the agronomical part of understanding exactly what's happened in our field, in our plantation, and the ability to identify and to get relevant and online information on disease, on weather changes, on various huge various of relevant information. But from the other end, to be much more relevant and to get much more information on the commercial part of our activities. What are exactly the price of the commodity? What are the other companies are doing? Price of inputs. I can actually look for alternative. The contacts will be much higher. The flow of information from both sides and the data revolution, it's for sure, from my point of view, this is the future, and this is a big boost to the agriculture sector.
Fantastic. So it's sounds like the digital, that's the big play in connecting everything and all the important information. Actually, the next question I want to direct towards Ricky, and more specifically to Jan and Hill as well. We're really here to talk about 4 things: Botswana, agriculture, technology, and business. It's obvious to anyone who's really following the trends and developments that are taking place on the continent that there are some really great business opportunities. But what do you think is necessary to be in place for attracting more investments in agriculture, specifically in Botswana? What can we do on that front? Ricky?
Hi, Yale. Yes, you know, we started off as a new investors in Botswana about 8 years ago, starting right from scratch. There was actually nothing here. So it is a bit of a challenge. And I think what we need is a policy framework to actually to minimize the tax burden and bureaucracy. If someone wants to invest in agriculture or any industrial properties for farming or processing of food, you know, there's currently, I think, a 30% tax burden on people or investments coming from other countries or elsewhere, where they have to pay 30% tax. I think we need to look at that, how it's going to influence investing in agriculture. And then policies should be in place to maximize the dividends for food products. We've got, our challenge here is we are very isolated, very far off locations in Botswana. All the food producers in Botswana is actually, you know, very far apart. So we need to look on how can we maximize the dividends for food products there. And then I think funding in place for entrepreneurs to streamline marketing and the distribution of our food products. Currently, we encourage entrepreneurs to get funding to buy their own freezer vehicles to distribute the fish locally and to the rest of the country, because we're in the northeastern part of Botswana. So we are very down. So we need to get streamline the marketing there. And then also structures like, I think, meat commission and localized food markets should be fully operational. Otherwise, people will not invest in the meat industry, for instance, like feedlots. We need to secure the marketing and the offset of the product. And I think also to subsidize input costs like fish feed that we currently import at very great cost from Zambia. I know the government also subsidized some other input costs in terms of maize production or productions. And it is, I must compliment BITC and Botswana government also for protecting farmers against cheap imports at the moment and dumping our farm products like for chicken and stuff like that. It makes a very big difference. And also I think it is a challenge to invest in aquaculture specifically because of the long term that you have to wait before you can harvest. You know, we grow the fish from egg size. We've got our own production line, but it takes about 9 months to a year before you can harvest. So it's quite a long-term investment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ricky. It sounds like a lot. You have a lot of suggestions for the government there in changing different policies. And I hope that also you're able to have that direct channel, and hopefully something will change. Maybe even today from this panel session, you have Julius and team from BITC. So, you know, this should be a good, direct, clear channel. Hill and Jan, any one of you want to specifically weigh in on as to your own experiences, if you've dealt with trying to raise capital from outside? What are certain barriers, or how do you see the investments, increasing or streamlining through?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's obviously government is already doing a lot for investors. I think the main thing that we can be so happy for is that we've got a perfectly stable political country at the moment, and I think just that alone for investors obviously must be a huge attraction to come to the country. But obviously, I think we as a let's call it the Botswana nation, I think we should look more into products that we can produce that that uses very little water. Remember, it's still Botswana. It's we don't have all the water in the world. We don't have the biggest population in the world. So obviously, I think we have to look at something that's a little bit more that uses little water, that can withstand high temperatures, that's drought resistant, and that creates employment opportunities. And because employment is always going to be a problem, and I think in the agricultural sector, that's the way that we can attract and basically create more employment opportunities. And then obviously it's something that can contribute to biodiversity as well, and that can be produced with limited infrastructure. And the reason I'm saying that, and that is our biggest problem in the country, we do not have infrastructure. So the whole farming community, it doesn't matter who it affects, every single farmer that's involved in farming is having challenges because of infrastructure. So if infrastructure can be, a better infrastructure can be in place, obviously it's going to make a huge difference. And I think that's where investors can come in to help us to create better infrastructures for the farming community.
Wonderful, thank you. So infrastructure is the big thing to attract more and more investments, and also kind of shifting to products that are using less water, which would be interesting to see as Botswana is very reliant on its livestock production, and we know that that's a big water consumer. Hill, any last thoughts, maybe less than a minute, so we could move on to our next question?
I want to add something, please.
Oh, sure.
When I'm listening to Jan, it's remind me completely the story of Israel. Our founders' father, when they started in the Israel country, they say, we are not so many people, we don't have water at all, 60% of the area it's desert, but we need to do agriculture in order to feed ourselves, but in order also to control our life. So I'm telling to everybody, we already done it. We had a lot of experience in taking this approach of how to do the best agriculture in the world with a short amount of water, but use it and do it in a smart way, in a precise way. There is plenty of solution that we are more than happy to bring to Botswana and to cooperate and to open new ideas, new opportunities, and to take it one more step forward. Part of what I'm doing as the Director of Agriculture at Empower Africa is to lead our consulting services. And part of it is to bring new ideas, new technologies to different countries in Africa, and and to identify a certain obstacle, as you mentioned, the lack of water, the lack of facilities. But if you take both of them and you bring the right crop, okay, in the right place, it's more than reasonable to solve it. So I will be more than happy to join to you, as we spoke already and we know each other, and and do something nice together. Thank you.
Thanks, Moz. Hill, any thoughts here?
That was a good input from Aviv there, because we need that kind of technology. Infrastructure is a problem. I know Jan, for instance, he sits in the south of Botswana or in the southeast of Botswana, fairly close to the border. And Ricky is up in the north of Botswana. She's got electricity and everything there. And I'm where there's no infrastructure. There is absolutely no electricity, borehole, water, solar. We do all that ourselves there. And that is a hampering for me. I'm importing coffee machines now out of China, and I have to now do a lot of infrastructure and spend a lot of money on putting up that facility where there's no power, for instance. The one thing that came to mind now to me, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, the infrastructure issue in Botswana would be solved by a railway line from the south to the north of Botswana. I think that's something that's way overseen. It will help us a lot with our transport problems that we've got currently in Botswana. I've got a vehicle that went out of my office here where I'm sitting now. I'm 1,000 kilometers from my office in Panamatenga. It went out here last Tuesday. That vehicle just left the border this morning. It is Tuesday. He sat at the border for 7 days, transporting product into Botswana. He only traveled 220 km in 7 days, waiting for COVID results. He's going to be on the road for another 4 days before he returns here. That's a serious problem. And so, yeah, the infrastructure is our main issue, I think. Funding, just a quick one on funding. For me personally, I've never asked for any, I've asked for assistance in funding, but have never been able to get any funding. All these things that I did and invested in Botswana, I did out of my own South African funded money in there. Maybe I must go to Jan and ask him his tricks and Ricky how they get funding in Botswana. But for me, it's a difficult, tedious thing. It's months and months of waiting for things like that. So, okay, that is my short piece there. Thanks.
Thank you. Certainly, it's great to get everyone's perspective on that. And kind of transitioning to the next question, which is somewhat similar to this past question on the issue of investments. But if you had the chance to sit with some of the biggest development finance institutions and government development banks, and they said you had access to unlimited funding for any project of your choice in agriculture specifically. Yeah, I see you shaking your head, Hill. Everyone loves that, right? Who doesn't love unlimited funding? So which project would you go for? What kind of, do you have a dream project? Let's start off with Ricky, and I really want to just open the floor. I think everyone has a different answer here. So Ricky, start us off and then we'll navigate to others.
Hello, Jan. Yes, I've got a very short answer. I will pick aquaculture again, as it is actually the fastest growing commodity in the world at the moment, and we can provide much needed and relative cheap source of protein. Million people die a year of hunger. We can produce a lot of protein and fish at a very short. It takes a long time to grow them, but you can produce a lot of protein in a smaller system and using less water, less land.
Ricky, we're having trouble hearing you. I don't know if everyone else is experiencing the same thing, but
yeah, that is what
buzzing in and out.
We actually have to put focus on what the previous panels said about infrastructure. We need to upgrade our network. So Empower Africa, start with that. It would be a great help to get us proper and affordable networks and electricity and stuff like that. But for us to invest in aquaculture, I think like in Egypt, Egypt is the biggest aquaculture producers in Africa, and they produce about 1 million tons of aquaculture and small, mostly of that from small-scale farmers. So we can also do a similar thing in Botswana, and I think take off. We're trying to get the government excited about aquaculture and producing protein and food at big scale. So, but we need to take this industry forward in Botswana. We need people with a passion, with the interest and skills, and not scared to work hard. I think we must stop talking now and really put our hands to the plow, so to speak, because there is a lot to do, but it is a very exciting industry to embark on, and I think we should invest more in aquaculture.
So I would guess that actually by knowing that you're directing an aquaculture operation, but thank you so much. So Amit, what would you say to, let's say, one of these big financiers that wants to support your dream project?
So I'll give it a different perspective because, of course, the physical infrastructure is super important and it needs to be invested. But I think that building a digital infrastructure of for example, mapping the entire country, understanding who grows what where, having all the data of all the farming done in the country is a way to attract a lot of foreign investment. Large multinational banks and insurance companies are not going into spaces when they don't have the data that is critical for them to work. And I think that it's something that can be implemented quite fast, and do, for example, a one-year project to implement and build such a digital infrastructure. And I think that can be a shortcut to many investments going into Botswana.
Fantastic. So you answered in two different questions. You answered one. I like that. Fantastic. Roy, what do you say to that?
Well, I'll go back, since a lot of the things that were said here, I totally agree. We understand it's a lot. It has to do a lot with infrastructure. Infrastructure is also, I would say, critical for the shelf life of especially fresh produce. I mean, it doesn't make sense to travel 14 days with a produce that may have maybe additional 2-3 days to survive before it's not good for consuming. But I think if I would have this, free access, I would not just ask for funds. I would also ask for the regulation to become more involved, the regulator to become more involved, but in the favor of the farmer, and not trying to limit the farmer. Because I imagine that farmers, water production would get the same attitude like farming. We would be left without water in some places, right? We don't see people wasting water, but we do see agriculture produce being wasted, because there is a limit to how much free economy can be the game in agriculture. So I would go in this direction. The second thing is that if I look at what we did in Ghana, within 5 years, we have 400 people, students that graduated from the university, and they are 100% good candidate to join the extension services, the professional extension services. Imagine what we could do with 400 people in Botswana with less than 3 million people. I mean, we could do a revolution in terms of knowledge transfer, and that together with building the scalability, I think that's where we could, cover the gap, because consolidation will take time.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jan, Hill, and Maoz, we have about 2 minutes for all of you. We actually got extended 5 minutes here. So just a brief, even a statement about like your dream project or the project that you would ask to do, and to kind of give us a perspective of what that would look like and what's needed.
I will go for something challenging, because I love challenges. I will go for desert farming. Take an area in the middle of the desert and build a successful zone of food growing and food processing. Make Botswana the next exporter in agriculture commodity. First of all, produce the food to Botswana and then even export it to all the countries in the surrounding area. Take a special area and, you know, make it green and successful. Demonstration to the rest of countries in Africa.
So Julius and team, I hope you just heard Maoz. Jan and Hill?
Yeah, I think for a farmer, unlimited funds is a dream. I mean, I think
that's why I asked it, because I really want to tap into your creativity.
Oh yes, I don't think you're giving me enough time to, but I think as farmers, we always going to go down to be practical, and we have to look at what we have and how we're going to do it. And what I love about Maoz is going to the desert. I think we have the opportunity in Botswana to actually do that. And I've got a specific product in mind that I think, and I want to mention it, a prickly pear is something that I think we can take to the desert and produce the masses and utilize it for all the things that it's. I mean, it's for food, for fodder, for healthcare. There's so many things for leather. There's so many things that you can use it for. And the nice thing about it is you can actually introduce massive production plants and stuff to diversify as well in it. And I think for Botswana, I think that's the way to go. That must be the processing of it is obviously the way to go. And I think Botswana is the place that we can do it with our limited resources, specifically water and our drought problems that we're having.
Fantastic. Hill, your final thoughts here?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that will be a brilliant idea if you can have unlimited funds, which is just a dream. But I will establish 5 crops in Botswana that has never been grown there. The one is coffee in the northeastern part, vines. I'm investigating vines now that we can actually double crop vines now like the Israelis do and like they also do it in Chile. Grapes, citrus as well. It's excellent up in the north. We can do that. Dates, and then hydroponic vegetable production. That's 4 things that I've got experience with, and that's 4 things that I will, if I can get land and money, that is what I will do in the north.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we are nearing the end here of our panel. Thank you again to all of our panelists here. Amit Noam from AgriTask, Ricky Van Gram from Chobe Bream Farm, Jan Stiglich from Lucerne Fields, Maoz Aviv from Empower Africa, Roy Peleg from Growing Smart, and Hill Van Schalkwijk from Hills Agrochemicals. Thank you again. I think we discussed over here the importance of data and digitization to really build a digital infrastructure to back up the agricultural value chain. We discussed food zones. We discussed exploring with coffee, vines, grapes, and citrus in the desert, really building up the infrastructure in order to attract more investments from outside and really provide for a better operation for all the various agricultural things that are taking shape. We discussed youth and the importance of making sure that they're more included in these kind of activities, whether it's through financing or better mentorship programs. So I think we covered a lot of good ground. We were able to also hear what each and every one of you, which way you would direct funds, should you get specific funds for a project. And so thank you again for this amazing opportunity. I would like to conclude now, and of course, Empower Africa was honored to lead this panel and very thankful to our partners at the Botswana Investment and Trade Center. Julius, thank you so much. Julius and team who of course organized this BITC event. it was really special to be here and able to share these brilliant ideas from all over the world, literally, and to come together and work towards a better and more secure future. Thank you to our audience, of course, everyone joining us. And I encourage you to reach out and engage us. If anyone would like to connect further with any of our panelists, please feel free to email me. My email is yael@empowerafrica.com. Thanks again, and everyone have a great day. We're actually going to move this forward to Jay Kalisher, who will be leading the next panel on VCs and entrepreneurs. So over to you, Jay.
Thank you, Yael. Well done.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Yael.
Bye-bye, Jael. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yael. I can ask our panelists to turn on their video now, please. My name is Jay Kalish. I am General Counsel at Empower Africa, and very excited to be part of this amazing company. It's an honor to participate in this important event today. I was impressed by the speeches at the opening session yesterday. His Excellency, the President, and the other speakers spoke so eloquently and movingly about the steps that the government has taken to develop and implement regulatory infrastructure that will enable the development of a center of technology of innovation in Botswana. I'm very grateful to our panelists who are joining us today. The panel itself will focus on the next steps that need to be taken to create a real startup/tech ecosystem in Botswana. To explore this idea, I've invited a mix of people, 2 prominent Botswana-based entrepreneurs and 2 representatives of the venture capital community, one a high-profile investor in Botswana and in Africa in general, and the other an Israeli and a prominent Israeli investor who has not come in yet, and we wanted to find out a little bit about his perspective on what he sees in Botswana and Africa. In our discussion, I hope that the audience will be able to learn about what investors are looking for to enter Botswana in the market. I now want to ask our distinguished panelists to introduce themselves. And we'll start, let's see, Tatiana is having problems, so let me, Tatiana, you're here, okay. So first I'd like Tatiana Dichaba to introduce himself. Tatiana is the founder of the Dichaba Group. He's a successful tech entrepreneur, and he has a desire to build real Pan-African companies. Tell us, DC, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much. My name is Tadeo Dichaba. I'm the founder of Dichaba Group, a company that is into consumer electronics. It's got the subsidiaries that is doing consumer electronics manufacturing. We are also doing stimulation and promotion of local digital content. Basically, in summary, that is what we do. We are looking into building a Pan-African brand. Our products are available in Botswana. We have exported to various markets. We have exported to Mozambique and Uganda and South Africa. These are the markets that we've already exported our products to, and we are looking into expanding into the rest of Africa.
Thank you, Tadeo. Our next speaker, our next panelist is Maloki Magoba. Maloki is an up-and-coming star in Botswana, a PhD researcher in chemical engineering. She won first prize last year at the Botswana Global-Expo in the investment battlefield in the area of electricity generation, for which she received an award from the Innovation Fund that's related to the Botswana Hub. Maloki, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. Thank you, Jay. You've already introduced me. All right. Good morning. My name is Muluki Makoba. I am in BUST. I'm a process engineer. At the moment, I'm taking on research, like Jay just said. I'm researching on coal to synthetic gas through the gasification technology. Syngas is realized as a chemical feedstock for different products in the processing industry. You have products like fertilizers, you have your home cooking gas. It can also be used as fuel. And at the moment, we are looking at a project which Jay mentioned that the BIH has funded me to produce a more efficient and cleaner electricity for the country. It's still a proof of concept project, and we hope that in the future we'll be able to scale it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Malaki. Now I'd like to introduce Tamim El-Zain. Tamim is a partner at SeedStars Africa. He invests in early stage companies on the continent. He speaks both as an entrepreneur and as an investor. And we'd like to, please, Tamim, give us a little bit of your intro.
Thanks, Jay. Morning, everyone. So yes, I'm an investor with SeedStars Africa Ventures. So SeedStars is originally an accelerator that is active in a number of emerging markets around the world, 25 of which in sub-Saharan Africa. And we are now beyond all the activities that we do on the acceleration space, building an investment fund that can support entrepreneurs across the continent. Further than what our acceleration structure is able to do. And we are really adapting our financing offering to the needs of African entrepreneurs, meaning we're not looking exclusively at the top 3 markets that everybody's talking about. And we don't have a too narrow tech-focused investment thesis, meaning that we can invest also in more capital-intensive, high-growth businesses. And very pleased to be here to discuss the ecosystem.
Thank you, Tamim. Now our fourth panelist, David Stark, is the founding partner of Ground Up Ventures, an Israeli venture capital fund which invests in both US and Israeli startups, at least this time. David, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As Jay mentioned, I co-manage a venture capital fund focusing on early stage technology companies. To date, our geographic focus has been primarily in North America and in Israel. But as we think about the move towards digital remote work and kind of teams being spread out anywhere across the world, we are really opportunistic in terms of thinking about new markets to enter and to invest in. So we're really excited about kind of exploring more opportunities to get active in Africa.
Thank you, David. I'd like to start off the conversation, which I hope this is a conversation among the 5 of us. Botswana makes a strong case for investment. The government is stable and transparent. There's a high sovereign credit rating, an open door to the Southern African development community, which basically means an open door to the market for 350 million people over 16 countries in the southern part of Africa. And yet, what are the next steps that the country has to make to really start encouraging this kind of investment? Maybe we'll start with Tamim.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the ecosystems across Africa and in Botswana are still very much maturing. What is happening today is that the ecosystems are developing from the top end, meaning large private equity firms and large international venture funds coming in, providing later stage capital, which is great. But these guys are facing an issue now, is that there aren't enough startups and small companies that reach their required milestones for them to invest. And so the market now is also starting to develop at the other end with acceleration structures like ourselves and obviously our peers that really help the ecosystem develop from the other end, sorry. And fostering entrepreneurship and innovation and hopefully driving more entrepreneurs into the journey. But this requires 2 things. First is that the local framework and policies enable that easily, and we're seeing a number of countries that engage on that journey. To give you a couple of examples, I'm sure most of you are familiar with. Senegal is doing a lot on that front with the Startup Act and what they call the like the Ministry for Entrepreneurship, the DER, as they call it. Rwanda is doing a lot as well in that direction. So I think it takes a lot of public will to be driving that. And the second thing is making sure that when you have early stage entrepreneurs that have great products and great companies, making sure that they're able to reach the milestones required by later stage investors. So that means that you need to make sure that the capital stack available in the countries where you want to develop the ecosystem is actually complete, meaning there's not a huge equity gap that will lead most of the innovators and entrepreneurs to die before they can reach a significant development.
Thanks, Tamim. Thanks to have that insight. That's very interesting. The regulatory side, I guess the government officials who are here are hearing you. But Tatiana, how would you respond or react to Tamim's comments about entrepreneurs themselves and where they stand? And what, from your perspective, that would be, I'd like to hear what you'd have to think on that.
I think great observations by Tamim. You know, when we started our company over 15 years ago, the environment wasn't necessarily as enabling as it is today. I think for me, it's very exciting, the fact that right now on this panel, we have VCs that are specifically looking into investing in the tech space and in Africa. This is something that was not really common in the past 15 years. So this is a sign that Africa is ready to receive very soon a lot of locally developed content. Hello, yes.
I think Hill,
again,
can Hill mute? Hill, can you put yourself on mute, please?
Okay.
I think something that he said that really is very key is the fact that there is a need to start developing the ecosystems. There is a need for us as entrepreneurs to reach certain milestones before a VC can knock at our doorsteps. I think this is something that is ongoing. You will be surprised to see that there's a lot of development that is ongoing right now, and the opportunities for venturing into the tech space in Africa has never been so ripe as it is today, which is something that is very commendable. Of recent, we have seen a government-funded bank, which is CEDA, review their guidelines to include innovation as well. I think this is something that is very exciting that I think was not necessarily there at the beginning.
Thanks, Taton. That was an interesting perspective. Malaki, what would be your perspective as a young entrepreneur, and to the comments you've heard from Tamim and from Taton up to now? And what is your perspective with the kinds of people you've been working with?
Right. Thank you so much, Jay. I agree with the previous two speakers. Botswana has made a tremendous effort in building the startup ecosystem in the country. We have tech institutions, we have the BIH, we have the BITRI, we have the BUST, and it's commendable for looking at how far the country has gone, and it only gained independence 54 years ago. And to have made such a transformation from only one university to now having 3 institutions solely basing on technology, science, and innovation, and having many other universities, it shows that Botswana is really growing. It's less than 54 years, it's less than one lifetime. And imagine what will happen if now in years to come, in 20, 30, 50 years to come. There is so much that Botswana has done, but of course there are other challenges. There's lack of there's still lack of funding. There are, yes, startups that are being funded, but not all of them are funded. And some of the brilliant ones are kept out. I was listening to the panel discussion on agriculture, and yes, infrastructure is still a challenge in this country. is still a huge challenge. We need our roads, we need those buildings, we need access to water, we need access to electricity for these startups to take place. And the other common challenge between us and the previous panel discussion is a lack of policies and understanding them and implementing them. The ecosystem is made up of the investors, is made up of the entrepreneurs, it is made up of the academic institutions and the non-financial systems and the government. So if these can be linked through policies and initiatives, ideas are there in the country. There are people who come up with ideas, but you find they don't have the know-how on the financials, on the development, on the marketing, on the business side of things. So if there could be systems in place to link somebody who comes with a brilliant idea, because if they don't develop that, if they don't take it further, if they don't have support, what they're going to do is they're going to back down. They're going to end up having that idea now going and not being recognized. So that's what we need to do. We need to put systems in place such that when somebody comes and presents their idea, then it's taken up, it's supported. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Malaki. David, I would turn to you. You're going to give an Israeli perspective or an international perspective. Israel itself is a 72-year-old country, yet over the last 25 years, there's been amazing strides in the development of the whole startup and tech ecosystem. So what do you think, what would you be looking for to come into Botswana, reacting to the comments that you just heard?
Yeah, so first of all, I think some of it is just a branding and market education challenge, right? So prior to prepping for this event, I hadn't yet been exposed to kind of this emerging tech hub, that's forming in Botswana. And if you actually look at Israel, I think Israel's a great example of a country that's kind of said, let's just send out a unified message about the fact that we care a lot about innovation and about entrepreneurship and technology. And that starts to attract attention of investors, attention of large multinationals, right, who want to open up R&D centers and who want to engage with startups. So I think that first and foremost, it's just like get the story out, right? Let people know about all of these great assets in terms of the institutions and the government support and all of that. And I think that starts to, bring the attention. And the second piece is as an investor abroad, I think one of the things that's worth investing in is really fostering the investor community who is interested in deploying capital in Botswana. So, and that's a combination of domestic investors, right, and foreign investors. So there's a lot of investors who don't like investing in companies where there isn't also a local partner who's invested in that company. So even I feel this way, right? So if I'm going and investing in a company who's based in San Francisco, but we don't have anyone in San Francisco, it's nice to know that they do actually also have some local investors who could be coming and meeting with them face to face more often. Now, the challenge for me is where can I go to find a one-stop shop to actually identify who are these local players in Botswana who are kind of writing these early checks into these companies so that they can be referring deals on to me for that next stage. But also if I, get approached by an entrepreneur, I can come to them and say, hey, since I don't have the luxury of going and meeting this entrepreneur in person, would you be willing to go and meet them for me and give me your opinion? And I think that a lot of people underestimate how much of investing is a team sport. It's a long journey, right? Being involved in these companies. And we don't like to be the only one around the table. And so many of our investments come from referrals from other funds and vice versa. And I just think kind of maybe putting a little bit of structure and a framework around that so that these investors can find each other and start doing the deal sharing, I think will just start helping everyone's comfort level kind of reach the next level in terms of starting to become active in the region.
Thanks, David. Tamim, I would ask you to react to that. Is there really that cadre, that group of local Botswana investors that David could start hooking up to as an example of making the deal flow more international, or at least the investors more international?
No, I think that's the missing part, right? I mean, you do have some great business angels in Botswana and elsewhere, and that's a great first step. But like I was saying earlier, then you don't have the next link that can take over from business angels and acceleration structures to help entrepreneurs grow to the next milestones. And that's what we're building at Seed Stars Africa Ventures. You have a lot of capital that's coming in Africa, and I agree with David. A lot of investors, foreign investors, are actively looking into the continent, but most of them don't have the local understanding or expertise to actually know what's working and what's not. And a lot of them are willing to find partners to be co-investing with, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I came across a study a couple of days ago that was showing that over the last 2 years, there were 400 individual investors, like firms or individuals, participating in deals over 500,000 US. About half of them invested only in 1 or 2 deals. That shows that the market is very fragmented, that foreign investors come in very opportunistically, and that the market is still lacking investors that can lead rounds with boots on the ground and local knowledge to be actually driving value in country and obviously leverage co-investments from foreign investors. So I think Africa and needs more of that to happen so that the ecosystem can mature further.
So let me ask you a follow-up to that question, or to your responses. What do you think are the steps that need to be done in Botswana to encourage that? What's missing? And I think that's what really interests us here now.
Well, I mean, so what's missing is really private money that is linking what exists at the earlier stage of the value chain with the later stage of the value chain. I think that part is mostly private capital coming in. So I think public policies can really foster innovation at the very early stage with both support and capital and policy making, and that's really helpful, right? But at some point, private capital needs to come in. So I guess in the end, it comes down to how do you attract foreign investors into the country? How do you make startup investments look less risky? So that foreign investors perceive the risk to be more acceptable. I think, some countries are doing a great job at this, and we need to see more of this policy making happening in Africa, so that all countries are at par. We, as Seed Stars, are active in Botswana. We actually hold our one of our annual events in the country. Gaborone is definitely on our map, but it's not on all investors' map. Probably because most investors prefer going to markets that have more mature ecosystem and more investor friendliness, or at least apparent investor friendliness. So that is Kenya. That is like the big countries on the map, right? In terms of startup ecosystems. And so I think that's what governments can do to foster innovation.
Thank you. I'm going to direct the question to Maloki and to Tataon. When you hear what Tamim speaks about, have you had experience meeting with and interacting with foreign investors? And what have been the reactions that you've felt from your side? Maloki, please go first, then Tataon.
Yes, thank you so much, Jay. Last year, during the Global-Expo, I was one of the investment battlefield competitors. Fortunately, I won that, and Caleb knows about this. I think there is no, maybe like Tamim was saying, there's lack of trust in our businesses going to make it. Are these startups going to make it? Maybe then after such pitches, we need more interaction with investors. We need to be one-on-one so that they appreciate what work we've done, how far we've gotten in terms of the development of our startups. As well, BITC, maybe because they're the ones who are facilitating this, together with the financial institutions in the country, maybe somehow they should find ways to make the angel investors that are available in the country, like we don't hear about them that much. Tamim is talking a lot about working with Botswana, working with Gaborone. I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs out there are aware of this. And they need to be out there. They need to be out there for entrepreneurs to appreciate them, to try their luck, to pitch and see if they can get funding from them.
Thank you. Taton, your interactions with foreign investors or local investors, and what have you seen and how does that move ahead?
Yeah, very interesting comments by Tamim. Look, I think first of all, we need to accept the fact that, you know, if you look at the African space in general, we are still taking baby steps. If you look at our peers in the developed world, particularly in the tech space, their chances of raising capital as startup companies is at least, the chances of them raising capital is at least 5 to 1 compared to us, meaning that the chances of them pitching once and raising and meeting with an angel investor, it's more as compared to us here in Africa. You find that at least the investors that I've had the opportunity to interact with, they would expect you to have proven yourself more than 3 times as compared to our peers. So I think investors also need to be aware that Africa is moving and is developing, and you really need to take the type of investors who sees an opportunity. I mean, if you take Botswana, for instance, we're in the center of SADC. Within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, you've got access to over 200 million people. So when you see like a startup company that actually has an offering that you think, or a solution that you think would solve problem within our sphere of influence, I think we need to have this kind of investors that would really jump on board. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I think Tamim was David who said earlier on that you know, you wouldn't want to invest in a company or in a company in a certain place where the local investors have not had the opportunity to invest. I mean, I think that's a sign of saying people around you must first show confidence in you before we from outside can actually show confidence. And with us here in Botswana, I can say that personally, our company, we've had an opportunity to attract 2 local investors right now in our company who are Botswana, who says, look, we see the vision and we want to invest into this vision. And I think that what we're trying to do right now, we have also had the opportunity to go through incubation and acceleration hubs, which are government sponsored. You can see that the government has played a significant role in that. But there is also a need for obviously a private participation, either your angel investors or institutional investors, or there is a need. So the government can't do everything, we accept that. But I think we have an enabling environment right now where I think most of the companies that I know locally are sort of investor ready. So it really takes an investor who is more than willing and is ready to see that there is a huge opportunity. We have grown as a country. I think as Moluke said earlier on, we are only in our 50s, but we've done so much. And even our president, one of his vision is to build a knowledge-based economy. You can see that there is a lot of focus and emphasis on the tech space. But what is really needed is investors or people who see the opportunities in what is being presented. Other than if we say we want to do a wait and see approach where we want everything to be correct or to be in place, we could be waiting for a long time. Yeah, That's my take.
Thank you, Tatan. David, you heard what Tatan's talking about and the people that are in place. I think one of the things we discussed earlier this week was what are the factors or how can Botswana develop more of that startup ecosystem, that startup mentality? And I think one of the things we were discussing was that COVID-19 and the new technologies that have come out may present opportunity for entrepreneurs or for the development of this ecosystem. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of great founders, that I've invested in the past, starting their company was not their first exposure and experience inside of a startup. And they actually had the opportunity to work at and grow inside of other companies and then take the lessons learned and go apply them to the business that they wanted to go build. And what I think is an interesting opportunity now is to kind of reach out and engage and build bridges with the global tech community as many companies move towards virtual and remote work, and kind of we see lots of startups canceling their office space in San Francisco and allowing people to work from anywhere. So there's no reason why their next hires couldn't be sitting in Botswana, and you then could actually grow this crop of very talented operators who have experience, working inside of these, larger growth stage tech companies, and then they could take those lessons learned and then be better set up to go start their own businesses. And I even think from the perspective then of raising capital from investors outside of Botswana, they will be more relatable in the sense that they kind of will have work experience at companies that those investors are familiar with. So it will just help bridge some of that kind of just culture gap and kind of understanding and belief that this is a founder who's kind of seen how it should be done, knows the playbook and the blueprint, and is now going to go try to replicate that, on their own in Botswana. So I think for a variety of reasons, it leads to kind of, really helpful maturation of the ecosystem. But similarly, a lot of it just takes time, right? I think the Paystack acquisition in Nigeria and every ecosystem, right? Those types of acquisitions, you then hope that there's this trickle down effect, both in terms of capital and in terms of talent, right? So all of the people around the table who made lots of money from, any of these exits, they should then go and start deploying it and becoming active angels in the community. And that's super important for them to be reinvesting kind of in that next wave of entrepreneurs. But it's also important that kind of the people who've been there as a part of the journey, not as the founders, that they then leave to go spread their wings and start the next kind of wave of companies and be these offshoots, right? So you think about in the San Francisco ecosystem, they talk about the PayPal mafia, right? So all of these founders that started their career at PayPal and then went off to build amazingly successful companies. So how cool would that be if you end up with the Paystack mafia, right? Of all of these people who left there and started companies throughout Africa. So I think just starting to figure out ways of encouraging that behavior and creating that culture will be really valuable.
I think, David, that's very interesting. The whole idea of the next stage of how to build that culture in the area. Tamim, yes?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to jump in to give a few initiatives that I think are worth looking into across Africa. One is called ABAN. It's the African Business Angel Networks. So it's a network of networks of business angels. I'm seeing that they have 3 entities in Botswana, and they have like 80 networks across Africa. I think that's a great resource for entrepreneurs. And there's probably a lot of work that, we're working with these guys because we know that when they found a company, basically, they have that local partner that Tatayon was mentioning earlier. It's really building confidence. They've gone through a lot already with them. So these networks do actually already exist, and there are institutions looking to reinforce them further with proper training and all. And I think we need to encourage these networks to grow further, but we also need, like I said, to show them that there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? So that they don't just waste their money into something that is that has no future. Meaning that they need to see that there will be foreign capital coming in after them. So that's one thing that I wanted to highlight. The second thing is, so I'll go back to my example of Senegal earlier. So the DER, which stands for Délégation à l'entrepreneuriat rapide, is really helping early stage entrepreneurs with various tools ranging from like grants to concessional capital, equity, and they're doing a great job in Senegal. And one of the reasons why we're partnering with them is they realize also that basically they need someone to take over from them. Just like the business angels that I mentioned. And I think this is a great example that should be replicated in a lot of countries that are looking to grow their ecosystems. They provide both support and capital, and these are scarce resources in most ecosystems today.
Thank you, Tamim. We have only about 3 minutes left, but I want to give Tatiana and Maloki a certain opportunity. You've got the venture capitalists sitting here. Very briefly, what's one question you would ask them? Here's your chance to get back at them because they're always asking you the questions. Tatiana?
Thank you. I think for me, it would not necessarily be a question, would be a comment, because I think one of them earlier on said that they need entrepreneurs who have reached a certain milestones. So maybe I could possibly ask them, what sort of milestones are they looking at before they can actually look into invest into African tech startups, bearing in mind that the environment in Africa is different from the environment like in Silicon Valley and other places. Are they able to sort of have some dispensation when they are considering investing in African tech startups?
David, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a pre-seed investor, I actually don't have hard and fast rules about milestones. I'm comfortable investing in founders who have an idea, have an early prototype, maybe have some non-paying kind of beta users. All of those things I'm comfortable with. What it ultimately comes down to is the strength of the team. And I think for me, one of the things that I have to just learn more about, right? In certain markets, there are signals as to a founder's credentials and ability and background. So I absolutely would imagine that the top people graduating from the top institutions in Botswana, are just as smart or smarter, right, than their counterparts anywhere. But I wouldn't know how to interpret that on a piece of paper because I'm not familiar with those signals. So I think what's kind of interesting is thinking about how I could learn or have someone locally say to me, hey, this founder is the most talented, smart person that I know. Here's the idea that they're working on. Great. That's all I need to hear. I need to believe that kind of the market they're going after is sufficiently large and that they're the right person to be solving that problem. And that's what I need to see. And that's how I get comfortable.
Maloki, your turn for a question. You're on mute. Maloki, you're on mute.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask a question. I would like to start by adding on the comments that we made earlier that it's very important for the government or for investors to invest on research. Research is very important because it will tell you, before you go any further, it will tell you whether the project is going to make it or not make it. And that's one thing that is overlooked when it comes to startups. The ecosystem, a part of the ecosystem is the research institutions, and it's high time investors realize that as well. In Botswana, the BIH especially and BUST have the incubation system where they accommodate new startups and they help them with research. And that is something that maybe when investors have a chance to invest in a startup is one stage that is crucial in the business progress. Okay. So I have a question. I think it's a nice coincidence because it's probably going to be answered by Tamim, who's already investing in the country. I want to know what challenges you have faced before in investing, particularly in Botswana, and how easy or how difficult is it for you to invest and trust in companies or in startups in Botswana?
I don't have particular challenges with Botswana, so I will answer for Africa more broadly. I mean, the reason why we started with acceleration programs is because we were through that able to work for 3 to 6 months with entrepreneurs, and like David mentioned earlier, getting to know them, getting to understand how they work, because most of them, while I mean the most brilliant people I have met, I mean they have no track record. They have great ideas. They might be the best people to execute that idea, but this remains to be proven. And acceleration is a way to de-risk that part, meaning that we get to work and know them a lot better at the end of the 3 or 6 month program that we do with them. And so that is giving us comfort now that there is a generation of entrepreneurs that will go through these programs and that will need further funding to continue their journey. So I think, yeah, the main challenge is really how do you get to know entrepreneurs? And my advice to entrepreneurs on that part would be to not really only reach out to investors when they need the money, right? It's a matter of building the relationship. It's a matter for us to understand how you're progressing as an entrepreneur, how the company is growing, and all these things don't just happen over a 30-minute meeting.
Taton, Malaki, Tabim, David, I want to thank you all for joining us. This was a very interesting discussion. I hope we've given a lot of thought, a lot of food for thought to the people who have been listening, particularly the government side, the entrepreneur side, and let's hope we could do this again soon. Now I want to turn this over back to Yael, who wanted to conclude.
Thank you, Jay, and thanks again to all of our panelists here. I'd like to just conclude the event and just highlight a few things that our audience members heard today. We started out with Ezzy Rappaport, the CEO and founder of Empower Africa, and the main thing there was, I think that what was explained by all of our panels was also the true value of Africa is actually in its people. So we definitely solidified that notion, I think, today. We went over to Shai Bernstein, the VP of Biz Dev and Operations at Empower Africa, and really mentioned the idea that it's so crucial to ensure some kind of transparency also with what's going on within the continent and what's going on outside. And this connects to really all the panels, whether it was the ag panel or the investors panel, and really make sure that through the Empower Africa Business Network, we're able to connect and collaborate all the different stakeholders who want to get involved in any sector, and specifically for investments as well, creating win-win relationships and mutually beneficial relationships on all ends. We heard a lot from the agriculture panel, and several things were very common to the last panel with Jay with the investors as well. Making sure that the infrastructure is something that is invested in specifically in Botswana to attract more investments from outside. We heard about the importance of a digital revolution also as it relates to agriculture and the whole value chain. We heard about different policy changes that are necessary. We heard about youth. And finally, the last point, which I really enjoyed the last panel, was more and more about getting the word out there, getting the story out there about Botswana, really ensuring that the branding and marketing is done well, and bringing justice to the entrepreneurs there. And then, of course, making sure that there's the next link to after the accelerators and providing for funding at the next step after the basic seed rounds and angel rounds. So again, thank you to all of our panelists. It was a great pleasure hosting everyone. We would like to say thank you again from Empower Africa to the BITC team. Again, Julius and team, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I do encourage, again, anyone who wants to reach out to myself, to Maoz, to Shai, Ezzy. We're all available to any of our panelists. And also we, of course, are happy to engage all of our panelists after this as well. So thanks again, and looking forward to seeing everyone and hopefully seeing people in person wherever you might be. So thank you and have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, AIL, for doing a wonderful job. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, ma'am. It was great. Thanks to be part of this. Bye.